Greetings, friends. Not many Westerners travel to Ghana or other African countries. But if you happen to be doing so, I have some simple advice for you. And this advice is relevant for all foreigners who spend any amount of time in Ghana, but it's particularly useful for those doing business, in other words, those who start enterprises. No foreigner should talk about money in Africa. Although I'm going to focus on Ghana because that's where I do business. So since early 2015, my Ghanaian friend and I have undertaken various projects. In Ghana, we have a volunteer organization kind of getting started, but we constructed a nice house, which is up and running now. And we have an animal farm, vegetable farm, a few other projects, which I'm not going to talk about here. It's funny that I'm making this video because information can be dangerous, and so you may ask me why would I make a YouTube video on this subject? Well, I mean, I'm hoping that nothing too bad will come of this, but you know, if it does come back to haunt me, then at least I gave you some good advice, because this really is the kernel of my advice from being an entrepreneur in Ghana. You have to guard sensitive information. So be smooth, be wise. Don't talk about things you don't need to talk about. But usually that means money. Could mean other things too, like where you're staying or, you know, certain details about yourself. It's okay to, you know, be friendly with people, as I'll discuss. So back in 2010, when I first went to Ghana, that's when I made a very good and enduring friendship with my Ghanaian friend. Let's call him Blinksman. You can call him the Blinksman or just Blinksman. Now Blinksman, you know, he's one in a bazillion. I think he's like an uncommon human on this planet, not just among Ghanaians. So he's kind of stands out, and I was very lucky to meet him. And but his friends. And he knows this too, and we both know it. We can't really trust his friends because they're kind of from the ghetto. They're you know, they're relatively harmless, but they're also not. They have kind of a bad mind, you might say. Sometimes they get kind of jealous, and because, as I'll discuss, that's when you bring in wealth into a situation where people don't have a lot of that. It can affect their mind. They can become greedy. So when I say ghetto boys, I don't mean like this town is dangerous where I'm living. It's just I'm using the word ghetto like it's like these young men. They're in their 20s and they're still living basically with their families in pretty basic housing, and they don't have jobs, and they're really not doing anything, and they don't have any role model, or they're not looking up to anyone else. So they listen to a lot of music and hang around, and but yeah, when Blinksman starts rising in the world, then they all notice, and so that can be an issue. You have to be smarter than people sometimes and not tell them things they don't need to know. Now, the truth is, so Blinksman is my friend in Ghana, and I don't reveal other information to people other than to Blinksman about money, about any really sensitive information about myself. But obviously, I'm a human being, and I need to have a social life. I need to have more than one friend. But how do you define friend? How do you define what a real friend is? So I might only have one real friend, but I have plenty of people that I hang around with. And, you know, you could call them acquaintances, but I would certainly have to be comfortable hanging around with people, not with Blinksman all the time. I'm not a little kid. I don't need someone to hold my hand. But it's just when it comes to certain important things, like business, that's just for Blinksman and I. That's not for anyone else. And as it should be for you, if you happen to be doing business in Ghana. But even if you're traveling or just volunteering or a tourist, even if you're in the country for a few weeks, you start to get to know certain Ghanaians, you have to you have to watch their movements. You have to observe them. Because the fact is, I do think it's kind of sad that, you know, you can only have one real friend when you're trying to go into a developing country. But the fact is, you know, it takes a long time to get to know people. And I didn't just start doing business with Blinksman back in 2010. Like that would have been ridiculous. But, you know, I got to know him. I lived with his family. He even came and visited Canada, and he worked in the United States too. So, I mean, this guy is unusual for Ghana. He's highly unusual. So, like I said, you still have to have a social life, but you have to learn how to handle certain awkward questions people might be asking you, and having a sense of humor is going to help you, because then you can kind of laugh people off. You can change the subject, and you know, people might forget what they asked you, because, you know, Ghanaians are naturally inquisitive people. They want to know, and maybe part of that might have to do with being a small town mentality. People like to gossip. People want to get information from you. But the point is that, like, in any case, people have no need to know things that don't concern them, and so you don't ever feel like awkward or forced into revealing unless you're dealing with like a government official or something where you really have to. And even then, if you're dealing with the police or the government, even then you might want to like be a few steps ahead of them. You have to be smarter than everyone. Ghana, it's a wonderful country. It's a beautiful country. And I want to tell you that the warm climate matches the warmth of the spirit of the inhabitants. I mean, their friendliness, their hospitality. At the same time, most Ghanaians are fairly poor and uneducated by our Western standards. So when they see white people, when they see the white man, which is for many of them still kind of a rare sight, because there never were any permanent white settlers in Ghana. There were the British colonial officials, some German colonial officials. The French were around Ghana, but not really in that area. So, but there's no permanent white residents in the interior of the country. Only certain people in pockets here and there, and then the only other white people in Ghana would be in Accra, in the big city on the coast, for diplomatic reasons. For maybe they're there with a big business, and they have no reason to leave Accra. So as I mentioned, maybe in one of my videos, I'm living in a town around roughly 50,000 people. And as far as I know, I'm the only white person there. Everyone else there is African. Yeah, because certain foreigners might pass through, backpackers pass through every now and then. But I mean, I could go a week or two without seeing another white person. And I know there's certain other business people around, like Arabs have a plywood factory, and Japanese engineers built a highway a 100 kilometers south of us, and so they're around in the region, but you wouldn't really, you still be a really strange sight, and children might actually gape at you, and they'll call you this word yavo. But I've talked about that in another video. I don't need to focus on my thoughts on racism here. It's not the same thing, but there are certain ways that people look at you. But the main thing is the money. You can't talk about this, because people get really excited when they see you. They can't think rationally anymore. They want to get money from you. It's like in the Lord of the Rings, where the ring is, it just has an effect on people. It makes people go crazy. So obviously, these projects that I've undertaken with the Blinksmen have attracted attention. Of course they would, because people can see that this shows an amount of money that most Ghanaians would never hope to accumulate in their lifetimes. So they see Blinksman and me together a lot of the time, and so they might make the connection. Oh, maybe the white man is paying for all of this. They don't know, because we never talk about it. And if they ever ask us questions, we'll just avoid them or we'll deny. And in any case, they know that Blinksman has lived in the United States for a few years, so he can say, oh yeah, I made millions of dollars over there. No, actually, the great thing about doing business in Ghana is how cheap everything is. So if you're an American or a Canadian or a European, I mean, yeah, you're like, it's just ridiculous. Like, the stuff you can get done in this country, it's hard to describe because it's not like knowing what the exchange rate is going to tell you what you can get done in a country, because there's, the cost of living and certain commodities cost different. But generally, like the cost of actual food and water and living is not, and there's basically like pigeon feed compared to what you would have to pay in North America in a big city, let alone build a house. I mean, I'm not going to give you figures here. I'm not going to give you the actual figures, but I can tell you that if you want to build a house in Ghana, it'll cost you probably, I mean, in a rural area, let's say, certainly it'll cost you 5 times less, 6 times less, maybe 7 times less than if you wanted to do it in Canada or the US. I mean, again, of course, it depends on location, but and then there's not much taxes either. I mean, basically you pay some taxes at the beginning, and then that's it. So the government's kind of being friendly to foreign investors right now. So it's kind of cool. Not to say that the government isn't corrupt. It's very corrupt, but that's another subject. So, like I said, these projects obviously attract attention because it's a developing country. It's basically a peasant agricultural economy where people have been living this agricultural lifestyle for generations, for millennia. And now some real development is occurring in town, and there's traffic lights, there's internet cafes sprouting up, I should say, all in the last 10-15 years. It's been amazing. In the space of only a few years, they got like their first traffic lights, and now there's like 5, 6, 7 of them. People are still learning like how to like respect the traffic lights. It's something new for them. So yeah, when people ask us things, we just stick to the story and the general narrative that Blinksman is paying for all of this. Of course he is, and I'm Blinksman's good friend. End of story. And believe me, it's worked. It's saved us a bazillion headaches. It's really worked. And this leads to the question: what would happen if people found out that I was investing money with Blinksman in Ghana? Well, that would be really bad. Not just for the social aspect, like me being in town and being around. If people would, oh geez, like if I had to get a taxi or if I happen to be by myself, and people might generally start pressuring you because they're going to do that. Whether in a friendly nature or trying to guilt you later on, like trying to go to market and buy things. I mean, believe me, I already get pressured, and that's the thing. That's the default position anyways. If you're a white person there, you're already in this default. People are going to try to guilt you to give them money because you can, because you're a white man, because all white men, all the whites, white women too, all the foreigners. I mean, it's not just white people, it's the Western. Your clothing will probably reveal you as a Westerner, they can tell. Or even if you're wearing, I mean, they wear Western clothing too, but they can tell, okay, if you're not from Ghana. And then, so automatically they'll see you as a type of king, and they'll have to, kings are supposed to give freely. So can't you do that? It's distorted. That's why you have to stick to a certain narrative and have a sense of humor and play it smooth and laugh and learn to smile and genuinely, because if you're just trying to suppress all this, because it can be kind of an interesting situation to be in. It can be kind of stressful. So you have to look at it all like a big joke. It's a big game. It's a joke, but it's a serious joke. To make money, to be a capitalist. See, people hate capitalists. They hate it all, but it's the most exciting thing. I want to convert you into a capitalist. I want to corrupt you and tell you that profit is actually a good thing, because then you start building up the middle class. You get on more entrepreneurships. Now, Blinksman's friends, maybe most of them are still being lazy and not doing anything. Because I'm not trying. It's true. They have no idea. They've never had any role models. They don't have any jobs. They don't even go farming. They don't even farm. They could farm, but a few of Blinksman's friends are starting to think, and now they're trying to do the same thing. It's great. It's great. You're changing the culture. So I jumped my question. What would happen if people found out the social aspect? It would be harder for me. But in a more serious sense, if people really found out this white man is a foreign investor, he's not just Blinksman's visiting friend, then the cost of doing business would go up probably to an incredible, ridiculous level, and then we literally would not be able to conduct business. It would just be impossible. And like I said, Ghanaians, they already try to do this to us. So, for example, when Blinksman goes to buy materials like in bulk, like wood or metal sheeting and construction materials, and he bargains. He's a pretty good bargainer, I gotta say. He's an excellent negotiator, bargainer, getting the price down. But I have to stay away from those encounters. Like, no, believe me, I meet these contractors, but if I do, it'll be like later on. It's not in the beginning. Because then just the sight of me, if they see the white man there, it's like Blinksman says. He's like, Ghanaians are funny with money. They're funny. Funny in the sense that, they act funny. They're not necessarily bad people. It's just something trips their minds when they see the white man standing there. And so business would be impossible. And also it would be kind of, worrying for me. Because the police, they do stop you on the roadside, so not in town, but if you do interregional travel, like on the highways, then you're definitely going to be stopped by the police. It's normal. The police are really corrupt in Ghana, and it's a really bad situation. I don't think they do anything for the country other than just stop motorists, and then take bribe money from them. So obviously you have to bribe them, but if they knew something about me, it's like, oh, you're that guy from whatever town, then it's like, oh, yeah, no, I'm not, or yes, I am. You'd have to be really smart then, and then you'd have to be, definitely have to give them a lot more. Police have all sorts of tricks they like to play on you, like, do you have a fire extinguisher in your car? Where's your license? It's all just, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's quite ridiculous. Because if you ever actually tried to get a license, then that would be practically impossible. You'd have to bribe people for that, and then if you don't know anyone, you might not even get a driver's license because you didn't have enough money to bribe a certain person, or you didn't know and then it's like you get stopped on the road. Where's your license? Oh, it's like, well, what are you going to do now? So, yeah, it's kind of, so obviously, well, it's kind of funny. Maybe I'll have to take down this video because only if it gets popular. And then, obviously Ghanaians have the internet, but I would have to be pretty unlucky that all this information got out and then it actually affected me. But I'm doing it because I think this is like my most important kernel of advice for you. I'm trying to corrupt you and make you into a capitalist and have you understand that these corporations. Well, I'm getting off on another topic here, but like that's not what capitalism should be about. It should be about getting to know people face to face and starting businesses and trying to make something work to make the society better. I want to tell you a story about what happened when about a year and a half ago we needed to purchase a car. Like it was it was like a Mercedes-Benz. And believe me, we're not trying to show off with a nice car, but the fact is the Benz is a really good, powerful car for Ghana's roads. It's perfect because an SUV is stupid because it takes up so much fuel and it's unnecessarily big. The Benz is perfect because it's powerful to get over these roads, these swerving roads, terrible roads with potholes, muddy roads. So having this powerful car, heavy car too, that it's easy to control, like if you can go really fast with this car. So we had to get this used 2009 but low mileage car. We ship it from Utah to Accra by this long process. And anyways, I know it's like, I don't know why I couldn't act as a third-party agent, but it was easier for Blinksman to make the purchase from where he was. He was already in Ghana at that point, and I was in Canada. So basically, it was like, okay, I'll send the money to Blinksman because I needed to do that at that point. We needed some money for the car. So okay, so it's not that much. I won't tell you how much it was, but it was it was a good price because Blinksman knew the guy from when he was in Utah. So anyways, sent this money to Fidelity Bank. And it's funny because this is the bank that Blinksman was using, a new bank. Banks are sprouting up in Ghana too. And Fidelity, it's funny because the word fidelity means loyalty or faithfulness. But that's the last thing this bank was, believe me. Now, I want to tell you this little story. There's two other characters here. There's Blinksman's brother. Let's call him Samson. It's not his real name. And then Blinksman's father, Daniel, also not his real name. But they are Christian names. All these people have Christian names. So basically, we send this money, and Fidelity Bank, it ended up that Samson, Blinksman's brother, and by the way, Blinksman has many brothers. It's not, but you know, he from a big family of like nine siblings. So, but this one brother, well, actually, more brothers are kind of not to be trusted too. But particularly Samson, he's really a bad guy, and he knew a bank manager that worked at Fidelity in the head office in Accra, and basically was observing his, you know, not observing Blinksman because Blinksman doesn't let him around, but by being gossipy and by, you know, doing dishonest things, getting information always for a jealous purpose, because knowing that his younger brother is having success in building enterprises and trying to get something going, Samson is jealous, and basically his plan was to get money from this money transfer by being in cahoots with the bank manager. So they held up the money. They wouldn't free it up to Blinksman on technicalities. They're just saying, oh, there's some technicality, like you have to show ID, or even though he showed ID and there it's not good, or they're basically like asking him all these questions, and it didn't make sense because we done money transfers before, but this time it happened to be a larger amount of money. So that was the mistake. Think if there's a larger amount of money, never send more than $10,000 to Africa if you're doing business there. And I guess that wouldn't be many people, but for those of you who are doing that sort, and obviously be completely suspicious of doing business in Africa. But my whole foundation to this video is you have to trust someone. You have to have a confidant, because look at all the scams that go on in Nigeria, and look at all, I mean, so many people get duped in Africa, not to mention the whole aid thing. But I'm talking about if you have your confidant, if you already have your thing going on, then send the money, but not in more than $9,000 or $10,000 US dollars, because after that, some banks can have certain rules that they make it more difficult. So in this situation, they're trying to make it difficult for us, but for no reason at all. It was just because they were hoping that Blinksman would actually go to his brother and ask, oh, you know someone in Fidelity, right? You can help me out. And then Samson will say, oh yeah, sure, but you know, give me some money and I'll help you out. And Samson actually thought that he would be the savior in this story. So it was really distorted thinking. And obviously we didn't do that, because Blinksman can tell that his brother's a bad guy, and he knew he probably had something to do with it. And eventually the money was sent back to me. So it was a total waste of time, and we stopped doing business with Fidelity. At least at that time, we just stopped. They were idiots. Stopped doing business with them, and then they were asking us, "Oh, why did you leave? Why aren't you doing business with us?" Crazy people. The most fucked up thing about the story is we later found out. I mean, all of this came out. Of course, it'll all come out in the small town mentality. I mean, of course, people are going to talk and find out. So the story comes out half a year later. We find out that it wasn't just Samson involved. It was his father. Daniel knew about it too. And I knew Daniel too. I mean, he's a respected man in the community. He's like a former accountant for the government. This guy's being on television. This guy was like one of the top government accountants in Ghana. He's retired now, and he's like, but he's still involved, and he's like a very respected man in the community. And like, I was just amazed. He has cocoa plantations. There's no, it's like he has money. So I don't know, but you see how it is. People who even have money, even people who have money, even bank managers, because the bank manager was going to take a cut. Daniel, the successful elder man, going to take a cut. Blinksman's own brother. I mean, these people, it applies to all levels of society. Something about the foreigner coming in, something goes funny. It's like they're funny with money. Funny with money. So the point is, not even the relatives of your confidant, of your close friend, are to be trusted. Not bank managers, no one. Not the police, not the government officials, although you have to cooperate with the police and the government officials, of course. But you always have to try to be one step ahead of people. So to conclude my educational video, And I mean, even if you're just a backpacker going to Ghana and not doing anything crazy, you're just interested in traveling around in Ghana, that's great. I think it's a wonderful country. And it's generally safe. Believe me, I'm giving you, some negative information here, but it's generally safe. But you have to be street smart. You have to use your common sense. So, I don't mean to scare people away from Africa or foreigners from going to Ghana. Because I do think it's a peaceful and blessed country, and Ghanaians are not bad people. If they were bad people, I would not have chosen to spend so much of my life in that wonderful country. However, if you are a foreigner who plans to live in Africa or spend a long time there, you have to be aware of how differently you'll be perceived. You have to be realistic. You can't trust anyone but your close friend, and if you have more close friends, you better be sure that you know them pretty well too, that you know what their true intentions are. I mean, some people can just, it may be not unfair, but I guess some people are better at telling if another party has good intentions or bad intentions. With me, I have a gut feeling a lot of time, like, oh, this person can't be trusted. That doesn't mean I can tell if someone's going to be competent. I mean, I had another business in Toronto, a language institute, that basically tanked, and also a partnership, and but that guy never had bad intentions. He was just kind of an idiot, and but I guess I could have sort of seen that too. I guess I kind of had a gut feeling too, but the point is, listen to your gut when you're getting to know people, and take time. You really gotta get to know people. It can take a few years, or it depends on how much you're around them. So. At the same time, when you're living in this developing country, you got to acknowledge the huge economic and cultural divide between you and the local people, and at the same time, be nice, be friendly, and you can and should have Ghanaian friends to have a healthy psychological life. It just means that you should be careful with any information about money that you reveal to these people, or other certain sensitive information, like what your plans are or what you're actually in the country to do, right? So you probably should never actually admit that you're an investor or doing business until you're well ahead of the game and have your stuff established. And even then, you might want to play this game for many years. You might always have to play the game. I mean, isn't life a big game? Isn't it just we accept certain roles, but life is still a game. You still have to respect certain rules, but then other rules might not be so clear-cut. I know that may sound kind of vague. What am I trying to say? I'm just trying to say you have to be confident that a person is honest and capable before you truly open up to them. And until then, money is a topic to be avoided when you're in Africa, when you're in Ghana. Okay, amigos, hope you enjoyed that. Hasta luego.